Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ. As football season is inching closer, our fantasy guys, you are busy to get a hold of. You're like running around here everywhere on CBS Sports.
We're flying.
Yeah, literally. Our FFT squad just released a 12-team half PPR mock draft. So we're going to break this thing down. But Jamie Eisenberg, if you see his phone out on the desk.
Oh, I'm very happy right now.
Yeah, he is currently in the middle of a draft.
Oh, I love that pick.
I just got Christian Watson in round 7.
Okay. Wow, Dave, you're
Round
really
7.
a fan of that one.
I love Christian Watson. He's one of my favorite breakouts. I'm not in this draft. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gotten Christian Watson.
He's my fourth receiver. Fourth receiver. Yeah.
Who
I was going to take him
That's why he's the next one.
Tyreek Hill, Devontae Smith, DJ Moore, and Christian Watson to go. It's a super flex league to go with Joe Burrow, Anthony Richardson, and Travis Etienne.
This isn't a mock, right? This is
real. This is real.
You know, when I heard you
Sleeping on the Packers offense. It's actually going to be pretty good.
I'm about to get one of my favorite players in round 8 too.
All right, I'm actually really impressed with the multitasking here by Jamie, but it seems to be working out well. We're bringing you good juju now that you're on HQ and doing your draft at the same time.
He might be later.
Okay, let's go through this mock that you have, 12-team half PPR mock draft, and we're going to talk about the backs. I mean, Dave, we were talking about these guys at length yesterday. Where should they go? The saga with all of these backs, but we're going to talk about Rhamondre Stevenson. In this draft, he goes in round 3. Over Zeke going in round 10.
Mm-hmm. I can't say that it's too early for Rhamondre in a half PPR. In a full PPR, I'd be okay with it. The problem is that when you're picking 32nd overall, which is where he went in round 3, you're probably not going to get a shot at Rhamondre Stevenson in round 4. So if you like him and you think he's going to actually outperform what he did last year, you got to take him at that point because he's not going to make it back to you in round 4. What did he do last year? There were 8 games where Rhamondre Stevenson ceded at least 10 touches to Damian Harris. In those games, he averaged right around 10.5 half PPR points per game. I don't love taking guys with that type of average in round 3, but I have to admit that he's got upside to be significantly better than that. What happens if Zeke really stinks? What happens if Zeke isn't the short yardage goal line guy? And what happens if Rhamondre Stevenson is top 5 in the league in targets and catches? Well, then his numbers are going to go up. So I get it. It's not necessarily a pick that I would make at this point in round 3. But if you really like Rhamondre Stevenson, that's the time to go and get him.
Yeah, I love this. I'm going to let people panic about Rhamondre Stevenson getting Ezekiel on his team. It's an absolute non-factor for me. You know, he's going to lose a couple touchdowns, but he's going to lose production somewhere anyway. You know, there was more talk, I think, in the early part of the offseason about what he would lose in the passing game, which to me was much more of a concern because this team 2 years ago, when they had a competent offense coordinator, they scored 25 touchdowns from their running back position, and that dropped to 10 last season. So they were going to get more production out of their running backs scoring touchdowns. Is Ezekiel Elliott scoring 25 touchdowns? No. Is he scoring the 15 that Damian Harris scored 2 years ago? No. So Rhamondre still has an opportunity to get better touchdown production than he had last year and now stay in the same role as the pass catcher. So they were treating him this whole entire training camp as the guy, putting him in bubble wrap. They barely let him practice. And now they're going to unleash him. And I think it's going to be a huge season for Rhamondre Stevenson. So I'm very excited about that. Ezekiel Elliott, double-digit rounds. That's exactly where he should be going. If you want to take a chance on him, you do it late. You don't do it early. Name over game does not matter here. It's about the game, and the game right now stinks for Ezekiel Elliott.
And honestly, last year he was good for maybe 10 or 11 fantasy points per game. And that's any format you want because he barely catches the football. In round 10, getting somebody like that, it's okay. I'd wait another round on Ezekiel Elliott because I find players that I like who have more upside than Zeke in round 10.
And guys, this is the first mock since Zeke and Dalvin Cook have found new homes with their new teams. Obviously, Zeke signing that 1-year deal with the Patriots, and then we have Dalvin Cook finding a new home with the Jets. So let's talk about Gang Green and their backfield. We got Breece Hall, who goes in round 5, and we were talking about this topic upstairs. A lot of our coworkers were saying, hey, that's too late for Breece Hall. And then we have Dalvin Cook, who goes in round 7.
I think it's a little too late, but I think that's where the happy medium is going to be in a lot of fantasy drafts because there's going to be like 4 or 5 people in every fantasy draft that say, I don't want to take a guy coming back from a torn ACL with a top 50 pick. And then there's going to be other people that say, well, I want to try and win my league. Breece Hall feels like a league winner to me. I don't mind going for him somewhere between 40th and 50th overall. Round 3 is way too early. This is a sweet spot for him. It's the first pick in round 5. Totally fine with this. And we know he's got the upside to do it because we saw it last year. There were 4 games where he played at least 50% of the snaps. Low threshold. He averaged almost 20 PPR points per game. Even if we take 70% of that, that's still somebody who's well worth a pick in this range that we're talking about. I can't help myself. I tried. I can't name another player in round 4/5 that has as much upside as Breece Hall. So I'm willing to take him in that range, and I'm hoping that he actually ends up coming through. When I saw him practicing 11-on-11 drills, that's when I fell in love. I couldn't stop myself at that point.
And that's why I love drafting with Dave, because he takes players like this that are going to frustrate fantasy managers.
I don't think so.
The history of running backs coming back from an ACL tear in year one is absolutely terrible. And he is going to have a season where he's frustrated. Robert Saleh said the other day that we are going to take it slow with Breece Hall. They know what they have, and they don't want to ruin it. And that's, I think, what happened to somebody like J.K. Dobbins last year, who tried to come back and had a frustrating season because he missed 8 games. They signed Dalvin Cook for a reason. Aaron Rodgers took less money to bring in players that he wants around him, and this is a guy that he knows very well. Dalvin Cook is going to play too much to cause a problem for Breece Hall. This is the right spot to draft him because you are hoping for the upside. But when you draft for hope, it's typically when you fail. And so I think Breece Hall is just going to be too frustrating for fantasy managers. He's a good player to take a chance on, but again, you're probably going to be disappointed if you're expecting him to be a significant contributor for you right away. I hope by the end of the season, he's going to win some fantasy championships, but I'll trade for that player when the person who drafted Breece Hall is probably struggling because they got off to a slow start.
But if I've got Breece Hall and you're trying to trade him from me,
but
you'll
be sub 500 at that point. You'll need some players.
I've got to hold on to Breece at that point. I'll trade somebody else off my team.
You need to get in the playoffs.
You're going to have a hard time.
You need to get in the playoffs, and you're not getting to the playoffs if you draft Breece Hall before the fifth round.
Entirely possible that I can get into the playoffs. If Breece Hall is a total bust, it's a round 4 or a round 5 pick. I've made the playoffs before with bad picks in round 4 and round 5. I'm hoping he's good. I think do we agree on the range at least, or do you think?
No, this is the right spot for him.
It's crazy.
If you take him in the first 4 rounds, you're making a significant mistake.
Okay.
But round 5 is
perfect.
Okay.
So the difference. So if he had gone at 48
he went
overall,
the first. No.
That's a bad pick.
45 on is fine.
We agree on that.
You
it's
agree
crazy.
on that, but
we have completely different outlooks on Breece Hall, but we agree on the range where you go. I don't know if there's ever been a player like that where we felt that way before.
Well, we showed the graphic, and one is way underrated and one is way overrated. So that always
Should we
makes
mention
for fun.
Dalvin Cook, by the way? Like the pick in round 7, it's fine. I would prefer to wait another round, but that's because I feel like Dalvin Cook could be an afterthought by the time we get to Halloween.
Okay. Do you like Dalvin Cook in round 7, James?
I do not.
Okay.
I think he should be probably another round for sure. But again, you're talking about if you're going to see how this plays out, Dalvin Cook in the beginning part of the season is probably going to be better than Breece Hall. And so for the first few games, as long as his shoulder's right, he could be a steal in round 7.
Okay. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Now, guys, you were able to be a part of this mock draft if you donated to St. Jude. We've been raising money leading up to our draft-a-thon that is on August 30th for this 12-team half PPR mock draft. Let's get to the team review for pick number 1, Dave.
I like this team. Obviously, Justin Jefferson, Justin Herbert, Mark Andrews, studs. You're never going to sit them. It comes down to the running backs. If Breece Hall is right, and if Jonathan Taylor plays and isn't hurt when he does play, this team's headed straight toward the playoffs, if not the championship. There's a ton of upside with this team. So it's a squad that I wouldn't mind necessarily having, but it's based on the ifs. What happens if Jonathan Taylor holds out, or if he's hurt and can't play? What if Jamie's right and Breece Hall isn't going to be a factor until November? This team's going to have a hard time putting up huge points in the first half of the year. So ifs all around with this team.
So what JP did in the draft after taking Jefferson first and Taylor second was play the best player available falling to him. And so it took Mark Andrews, took Justin Herbert a little bit too soon, but obviously ended up with that. Took Breece Hall in round 5. I think there's a lot of questions, but if those questions are answered, then it could be a really significant team. So JP did say he's used to playing in leagues with 2 receivers as opposed to 3 receivers. So this was a new format for him, but enjoyed the challenge of it. So it was fun to have somebody else in this draft that's a little bit different. But I do think, though, I like what he did with his backup running backs. Combining the 2 Eagles guys, at least the top 2 Eagles guys right now, and getting Antonio Gibson. So if there is a problem with Taylor or with Hall, hopefully not both, then he has at least one fallback option.
Yeah, I feel like having Jonathan Taylor in your lineup at this point, you're like sweating it out, just waiting to see what happens there in Indy.
I think you're hoping he gets traded.
Yeah.
Because if he gets traded, it'll be a better situation and he'll get more fantasy points and he'll be a value at that point. Where'd you get him? First pick around 3?
For
Jonathan Taylor?
Jonathan Taylor was the first pick around 3.
Yeah, so I mean, that's insane.
No, I'm sorry. That was round 2.
Same thing, right? Last pick around 2, beginning around 3, tomato.
Okay, so you liked that lineup. So let's look at and get a team review for pick number 2. Thoughts on this?
I think this team's a little safer, and you've got to love Christian McCaffrey and Josh Allen on the same squad. That's a great way to do it. And look at the explosiveness at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Waddle, Ayuk, Hollywood Brown, I think has some, between the running backs, the receivers, and Josh Allen, I mean, 3 of these guys should pop off for major points every single week, and that'll help you have a big spike week. So I like this team.
This team went very heavy on running back. So when you see McCaffrey, Dobbins, and Connor, that's the strength of this team, along with 2 stars at quarterback and potentially wide receiver. I think Jalen Waddle is a star at wide receiver. So to get, Ayuk and Marquise Brown knowing how this team started, it's pretty good. But then you factor in P. Ryan as a 4th running back and Jamal Williams for the first 3 weeks of the season, a 5th running back. Love the value on Brandon Cooks where John was able to get him. And then some, dart throws, but DJ Chark, Tyler Boyd, even Jalen Hyatt. Tight end's a little bit of a question mark, but I think overall it's a pretty solid team. All
right, Jamie Eisenberg, Dave, Richard, we appreciate your time, especially when you are in the middle of a mock draft.
What'd you get?
My last 2 picks were C.J. Stroud as a 3rd quarterback and Samaje Perine as a 3rd running back.
All right, you'll have to keep us posted and let us know how you do in that league. All right, and if you want to hear more of Jamie and Dave, you can check them out on the FFT podcast. You can download and listen wherever you get your pods, or you can scan that QR code.